Hey guys. Hey there, Packer Nation. It is Friday. The weekend is here. I hope that you have a quick, short, maybe a day off today, and then a long weekend would be even better. But man, things are running a little slow around here. My network is acting funny, so if we have any technical difficulties, I guess I'll just have to roll with it. But everything looks good for right now. It's Friday. We don't have any predictions to make because we will be doing Prediction Friday anytime there's a game. However, I do want to take requests. Like, what do you guys want to talk about today? And I will mention one thing that I know, like, I keep getting questions about Jordy Nelson. So, and it's legitimate. It's probably just people that haven't heard me talk about it before. There's a lot of people out there that are wondering if Jordy's going to be back 100%. Okay, so I thought I would kick it off by talking about that for just a minute. And I am no doctor, so I'm not making any kind of medical diagnosis here. But I have had an ACL, and oh, there's a message that I don't want. I don't know what that was all about, but I think Jordy's going to be fine. The ACL injury. Um, the ACL injury is it's an anterior cruciate, it's the front cruciate ligament, so they crisscross and kind of basically hold the tibia to the femur where the joint is there. And when one gets broken, then the knee becomes extremely unstable, and that's why the big question with an ACL is the guy going to be able to cut? Okay, so when I came back from I got a good question from Matt. Is Davante Adams really on the chopping block? But I'll finish this up and then we'll go to that. But that's a great question. Hi, Tim. Hi, John. Johnny's back. All right, Mark, how you doing? So the real question, ACLs, oftentimes there's a lot of collateral damage. There's a lot of meniscus tearing, and there can be MCL, PCL. You've heard all these, but from what I understand, Jordy had a straight ACL. This can be reconstructed, and it can be just as strong as it was before. It's still just as vulnerable. The issue with ACLs is that they're vulnerable to leverage if the knee gets tipped backwards or turned to the side or anything like that. It's one of these injuries of awkwardness, I guess. And you notice how when Jordy went down, it didn't look like it was that bad, but it was awkward. And when he came up, his ACL was torn. So this is how they work, but he's going to be fine, and he is ahead of schedule from what we understand. And Jordy's just going to work harder than anybody. The fact of the matter to me is I'm just hoping that, and I know that Coach McCarthy is just not going to let him back too soon. And so to answer everybody's question, I think Jordy's going to be just fine. The worst case scenario, the worst part about an ACL is kind of in your head. It gets in your head a little bit because you got to make cuts, you got to cut hard, and you got to cut hard on that knee. But that's not going to take long for Jordy, and this was not a devastating ACL. There are different sort of degrees of ACL, and he basically tore it, but there wasn't a lot of collateral damage, so he isn't worrying about other things, and I think Jordy's going to be fine. The question of Davante Adams is not on the chopping block, not by any stretch of the imagination. He is at risk of losing the position that he held last year because of the strength that we have at our third wide receiver spot. But I've said this before. You watch Davante; he is going to come back with a vengeance, and that's a good thing. That's fine with me. A lot of people are upset with Davante. Well, I didn't like how he played last year either. He was hurt most of the year. I didn't like how he played either. But that doesn't mean I want the guy to fail. The guy has got a lot of elite measurables, and you see the guy slam dunk the ball. The guy has got a lot going for him, and he has to prove it on the field. But worst case scenario, he drops down a notch or two because of the competition. He's got Ty Montgomery is coming at him. Jared Abbrederis has received tons of accolades about how his route running is extremely advanced for his age in the NFL. And of course, Jeff Janis, we saw what he was able to do coming on strong last season and gaining the trust of Aaron Rodgers, which was really, I think, the root issue of what was going on with Jeff Janis and why he wasn't getting reps, wasn't getting in, was really Aaron Rodgers just wasn't quite sure that he was going to be in the position that he needed to be. And I will call again to that first game against the Bears. No, I'm sorry. It was what we talked about yesterday. Yesterday we talked about the Hail Mary. And Jeff Janis did have one play in that game it was for him. Had he played it correct, he would have scored a touchdown. He didn't. He turned his shoulder back. He was working the arm bar, and he didn't play it correct. Well, the guy's young, you know. So yes, during the season, that doesn't play into you, Aaron Rodgers having a lot of faith in you. But then at the end of the season, when he was pressed into service, he really performed, and that's gonna bode well and pay dividends for him coming into training camp. So. Kelly, will they keep more than 3 receivers? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The question is 5 or 6 right now. And so we're going to have a great receiver core. I think we have the potentially the best receiver core in the league right now. And we'll see how it goes. But yeah, especially the third receiver spot for Kelly in particular. The third receiver spot is the one that we're going to be watching really closely, because I've said this before. When you look at a receiver core as a whole, if you can look at the third receiver, most teams can afford to have a really good number 1 and maybe a pretty good number 2. But after that, it's usually a toss-up. It's undrafted free agents, or that have performed, or guys that you are young. What the Packers have is they've got a really good number 1, Jordy Nelson, assuming he comes back, like I said, perfectly 100%. Then we've got Randall Cobb as the number 2. And you saw what that tandem did 2 years ago. And so they are tops. But add to that, Kelly, the fact that our third receiver core includes, it's a toss-up. It's Ty Montgomery, who is sensational. I've been high on this guy since I watched. He is the most fluid, I'll say it again, he's the most fluid athlete I've seen in a long time. And he truly does look like a bigger Randall Cobb. Not as sudden, but very fluid. Smart guy. You've got Adams, who Devontae Adams, man, I mean, he had the potential to be an extremely good number 3. You've got Jeff Janis, who's got a lot of speed and he's got a lot of straight line speed. He's a big guy. He's fast for being a big guy. He's learned a lot. He's started to get Aaron Rodgers' faith in him is growing. And that's not even to talk about Jared Abbrederis. The Packers have proved for years that speed is not the most important ingredient to a great wide receiver. It's the ability to make cuts, the ability to see soft spots in zones. It's smart players. Yes, you have to have a certain skill set. But, to quote Braveheart, it's our wits that make us men, right? So Jared Abbrederis, extremely smart, very advanced in his route running, and so he's going to vie for that third spot as well. So it looks pretty good. Josh Brown is asking, this is a great question, what will the Packers have to do to get to the Super Bowl? So everybody jump on and give your opinion. I am going to give my opinion on that, okay? My opinion for the Packers, if I had to pick one thing now, everybody, you can only put up one thing, okay? So my assumption, I'm going to give you my assumptions first, okay? My assumption is that the Packers offense, as I have said, with Eddie Lacy coming back, our third wide receiver being good enough to be a number 2 on a lot of teams in the league. Our offense is Aaron Rodgers, and our offense and Eddie Lacy is going to have a career year. Aaron Rodgers is going to have a career year, I think. And I'm just laying this out there because that's what I see. The offense, I think is going to be fine. The defense, great defense is too general, Josh. You have to have great defense, but that's just too general. Here's what the defense needs to do. So you're right, Josh. The question mark is on the defense. The middle of our defense in the first 2 levels is the question mark that needs to be answered for the Packers to go to the Super Bowl. Because Clay Matthews will be playing the majority of the snaps on the outside. That's a great advantage for the Packers if they can stop the run. If you can't stop the run, that's not going to do us any good, because Clay Matthews is just going to have the ball thrown over top of him by any smart defensive coordinators out there. Yeah, Thomas, defensive line needs to play well, especially the nose tackle position. We need to be able to stand up we need to stand up 2 guys, and the interior linebackers, the inside linebackers, need to be proficient to stop the run. And if that happens, then it will be like a house of cards. Our defense, the advantage will be for us. For the offense, it will be like a house of cards. If you can't run the ball, then you've got to throw it. Now you've got to deal with Julius Peppers, Clay Matthews, and if our interior defensive line is doing a good job, you've got them. We've got Mike Daniels that can get after it. if that initial inside middle of the defensive line and our inside linebackers take a step forward, watch NFL. This team is going to be special. Okay, so that's the answer to your question. I miss Jared coming across. Hey man, hey Josh, hi Euro. How many years does Rodgers have left in him, and who would you like to be his replacement? Well, Brett Hundley looks really good. Yesterday, I had a post I was going to put out about Brett. I will put that out today. I didn't get to it. We had a bunch of other stuff. It was just a really busy post day, which is fantastic. I loved it. But let me answer your question. I think Brett Hundley is going to have to go the way of all Packer backup quarterbacks before Aaron Rodgers retires, because Aaron Rodgers is going to have a lot of good years left in him. Look at how long he everything he seems to measure himself by Brett. Like he's got something about, he still sort of has a little chip on his shoulder about Brett. So I know everything that we hear when you read between the lines is that Aaron Rodgers wants to play for a long time. Then you look at the way that Aaron Rodgers manages his body. It's completely different than Brett Favre. Brett Favre was a risk taker. Aaron Rodgers he's not risk averse, but he's extremely smart with how he uses his body.